Today we're gonna make Takuan out of the daikon, and we're going to kind of clean it and then peel the skin off of it to start with. You have to be careful. Sometimes they're in the fall it's okay, but in other times sometimes they're overgrown and so they might have white streaks in them. But these are really nice in the winter time. So. Oh, my mother was a super Tsukemono cook, and I kind of learned it from her because she was getting into her 90s, and somebody's got to learn how to make it. Otherwise, we won't have a Tsukemono. And so, since I live closer to my mother than any of us, my sisters, but I was elected to learn how to make it, so that's how I got started. We are going to peel the skin off of this daikon. There's all kind of peelers, so I don't know which one's the best, but one that peels the fastest, the best. It all depends where you purchase it, but this one here was purchased at in Fresno, and that wasn't a free market; it was a store. And they have 3 in a bunch, so I bought 5 of them. So I actually have them. But then some are small like this. And some are large like this. We're gonna slice it so to soak it in a brine right now.
Yeah, I noticed you cut square. Some people cut their Takuan round.
Yeah, they do. I like them square. Because when you make it, then you have to cut it in half, some of them. Okay, one recipe is 2 cups. So we're gonna put 2 recipes, so we're gonna get 4 cups, okay? Recipe. This is a pickling salt we use. So we'll use 1/4 cup pickling salt. So 2 recipes will be half a cup, huh? Okay? Cup of salt and half a cup of mirin. And we're gonna put 1 cup of mirin. A teaspoon of corn. We're ready. It all depends on how much you have. So I put in, for a full bucket, I'll put in about 4. I just stick this in a bottle. I don't use it for anything else. I just stick it in a bottle like this and then get the color out like that. And if you think maybe after about 4 hours, and if you think it's not yellow enough, then you can put another. See the water comes out of the Takuan, so they'll be juiceable like this by the time you're in the. And so about every hour I stir it like this. I just leave it here, and every hour, then after 9 hours, then we'll take it out on a colander and we'll process that way. been in a bucket for 9 hours and it's been stirred every hour. Now we're gonna take it out and process it. Now we're gonna strain it first. Now we're gonna strain the brine that's within the daikon was in, and we're gonna strain it. Then we're gonna boil this brine. Everybody complains that the daikon gets soft, and I think what they do is they put the whole bunch in together and then put it in a jar, and by the time the end jar comes up, well, they'll get overcooked. So I tell them to do 1 quart at a time. So you just boil fast, and then you just put it in a jar, and then it doesn't take that much longer to do 1 quart at a time. I think it's better that way because then that way it won't get soft. We're putting that in this brine so we can start our daikon takuan. See, this is a 3 quart pan, so I have this, this mark like that. There's 1 quart, and 2 quart, and 3 quart. And so I'm gonna put this in here. No, I have too much in there. Yeah, watch it and see that it just comes just to a boiling point, not quite boiling. Not quite boiling, like that. I'm gonna leave that on because I put these chili peppers in here. it around like that. I'm going to clean the top. I'm going to put a little bit on. Now we finished our takuan that we started with just a little bit to make a few jars. And so we all set for 2 weeks and then you can eat it. Okay? I hope it tastes good.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We just wanted to welcome everyone, first of all, to the Tadaima virtual community pilgrimage put on by Japanese American Memorial Pilgrimages. So as you all know, we're all sheltering in place during this pandemic, and as a result, a lot of our planned pilgrimages to the different World War II incarceration sites around the country had to be canceled this year. But in response, we are putting on this 9-week virtual program, and we'll be bringing you on a daily basis a whole lot of different virtual content for you guys to learn from and also share your experiences with the rest of us. And so this is our first day of full programming following our opening ceremony that was yesterday that kicked us off. And hopefully you guys were all able to catch that. It was really great. And we're really excited to keep the programs rolling here. So my name is Haruka Raudabush. I'm calling in from San Francisco, California, where I work as the Senior Programs Manager at the Japanese Cultural and Community Center of Northern California. And I'm also involved on the National Board of the Japanese American Citizens League. But at my job, one of my favorite things that I get to do is coordinate a lot of our culinary programs. So for the Tadaima programs, I'll be involved with some of our future programs, and today on our segments that are a little bit more focused on food because that's what I love so much. But in any case, we're also joined here today with our filmmaker, Kerry Yo Nakagawa. And Kerry, if you could start us off by just introducing yourself a little bit and also maybe get into how you came to capture this segment for us, why you did it. And then we can also go into questions from the audience as well. So for those of you watching at home, if you have questions you'd like to ask Kerry about the film, about the Takuan, then go ahead and enter those questions into the comments, and we'll try to address those as we go on. All right, so go ahead, Kerry.
Thank you, Haruka. First off, I just want to let everyone know how honored we are to be here in your presence to share our Tsukemono history and just to be able to see Betty Mayebo. When you saw her, I captured her, back in 2012. She was 94 at the time. And how this all kind of got started, Haruka, was we were having Thanksgiving at our house, and my son, as everyone was eating their Tsukemono and enjoying it, which has been a staple in our family for generations, he asked if we had some of these recipes. And of course, I didn't. At the time, my mom had just passed away at 98. And, my bachan, she had a restaurant. And I'm coming to you from Fresno, California, as we speak, or what we call in our region, Fig Garden. But on the west side, pre-war, my grandmother had a restaurant called Matsuno Zushi in the 30s. And across the street, my Ji-chan had a general store. The Nakagawa Ranch on my paternal side, they were famous. My bachan was famous for her cooking and catering. And so we wanted to preserve these Tsukemono recipes, but unfortunately, my bachan or my mom didn't write them down, and everything would be done as you watched them. And so my son planted the seed, and I recruited my mom's friend, Nisei friend, Betty Mayebo, who was the queen of Tsukemono in our little small farm town. And so I was able to twist her arm and convince her that could we share, from her garden, organic garden, to the kitchen, to her processing, to jarring her wonderful tsukemonos that she would share with family and friends every year. And so we got to really get a great chance to see how she grows her amazing garden. And even the gophers that would invade them, I had concerns about those. And she says, well, Kerry, they got to eat too. But that was Betty's spirit. I mean, she, amazing woman and amazing knowledge. And she learned from her mother how to make tsukemono. So, my quest kind of as an author, filmmaker, historian has been to preserve our Nikkei baseball history, because been very blessed to have uncles that competed with some of the legends of the game. And yet on my mother's side and our Nakamura side of the family, we've had such amazing chefs and cooks in our family. And as I mentioned, my grandmother had a restaurant. So equally as important as the athletic side and the baseball side of our family, I felt that the tsukemono and the pickling vegetables was such a iconic touchstone to our history and to our Issei and Nisei pioneers that thank goodness Betty shared all her techniques, because, Haruka, as you know, we as cooks, we can, as long as we get the proportions and the ingredients, we can be very successful with the dish. What I love about capturing Betty on camera is that in a recipe, you never get to see how that person cuts the vegetables, how she peels, what kind of peeler she uses. We have, she'll use like food coloring to make the Takuan yellow. Nowadays, a lot of cooks want to eliminate, the yellow food dye. So you don't have to use it, So a lot of these things are preferences, but a lot of them I know come from the legacy that Betty's parents and, her mother taught her. And of course, from my standpoint, growing up, as a little sea urchin kid that loved seafood, but we grew up in the country, that pungent smell and seeing these ceramic tubs with river rocks on it, that was the essence of making the napa cabbage tsukemono, or the ume and shiso, or the fukujinzuke. And so unfortunately, it wasn't until much later, as I got older, I really appreciated my bachans and my mom's cooking, because a lot of times the smells for having, natto or whatever they made were pretty powerful. So that's how the genesis of this all started. And I'm so glad Betty was able to let us kind of watch her over the shoulder, make everything. And so the 5 that you'll see today we are addressing Takuan, the daikon, which is usually the easiest to make because it only takes maybe 1 day processing. A lot of the other ones like fukujinsuke, ume, nara-zuke, hoshigaki, kaki, it's a few days to a month of processing. So there's always these little stops and breaks. So I'm hopeful that everybody today got a chance to see how Betty made her takuan, and as I mentioned, there's some things that she'll use, like her peeler looks like a harp. I use a regular straight peeler, whatever I think peels the easiest for you. She uses full yellow food coloring. I have a cousin, Keith Inoue. Here's an example. He lives in Gardena, Torrance, but grew up, in Hawaii. They don't use yellow food dye. So this was his takuan with the daikon. Kind of looks like the Guggenheim Museum. It's beautiful, but there's no dye in this one. This is my version. I like to use the Japonese chili pods, the Japanese chili peppers. Betty only uses maybe 1 or 2 per jar. I like to load it up. I like our takuan spicy. This is our fukujinzuke, 5 different vegetables. There's ginger, renkon, Armenian cucumber, which we call guta, Japanese eggplant, and daikon in this. And then this is our ume and shiso that's cured. And all these basically were just canned, because now the timing of the vegetables is critical. Japanese eggplant and Armenian cucumber only come in seasonally in a very short amount of time. So if you're going to make it, you want to jump on getting them at the farmer's market as soon as you can. A lot of people with the chunks, with the takuan, I'll use, like Betty you saw was very chunky. I like to go more bite size. Some you'll see in takuan, they'll be round. Those you have to get really thin kind of daikon radish. The ones that are out in season right now are fairly big in size, so you have to just kind of keep breaking it down. But that's kind of the genesis of Betty Mayebo, and how she allowed me to film in her wonderful house and in garden. And if there's any questions, Haruka, let's go for them. But first I want to thank Tadaima, Hanako, Aaron, Mia, Royce, our engineer, that's putting all these amazing moving parts together right now. So thank you all for giving us the opportunity and to share our Tsukemono history.
Great. Thank you, Kerry. So yeah, I think it's so wonderful that you were able to capture on video, Betty making her Tsukemono. And I know that, our entire community has so much cultural knowledge and tradition that, it's really important for us to figure out ways to pass on that sort of cultural knowledge to successive generations. So really appreciate that you've been able to capture that. So we do have some questions starting to come in from the audience, but I also want to encourage folks in the audience too. If you have made your own Tsukemono in the past, could you share with us like what kind you guys have made, or if you remember, eating Tsukemono as you grew up? Also share with us any sort of memories or pieces of a nostalgia that eating Tsukemono kind of invokes in you. We'd love to hear from you as well. But let's start off with a question from the audience. This is from Raymond. And Raymond asks, would you use Japanese osu if you had it instead of the vinegar that Betty used?
I'm not quite sure, Haruka, what osu is. Do you know?
I think it's sort of like the brining agent, like the liquid.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only brining agent I've used is the ones that Betty shared with us, which is usually the combination of meeting, the distilled vinegar, and one of the keys I noticed is that the pickling salt. She's very particular on that one brand of the pickling salt, not so much just kosher or the salt with iodine. So from the osu standpoint, that sounds kind of traditionally maybe from Japan. I'm not used to it. Maybe some of our Issei or Nisei would be used to osu, but I'm just used to combining these liquids, and usually it's generally the vinegar, the meating, a lot of times shoyu. But I do know that after we've used all the takuan, or you've used all your vegetables that you've eaten, you can use that brining agent for, like, if you want to brine chicken overnight, use that same sauce, or mix it with other dishes.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I get jammed with a question I can't answer. But yeah, the osu I'm not really familiar with.
Hmm. Sure. So I also have a question myself about the person who made the Tsukemono for us in the video, Betty. Could you tell us a little bit more about her, as far as like how she became known as the Queen of Tsukemono in your area, and was she producing Tsukemono for farmers markets, for like church potlucks, that sort of thing, or how did you come to know her Tsukemono and come to appreciate it?
Haruka, she would be my mom was a little bit older generation than Betty. And so my mom, when it came to the Fowler food bazaars, was famous for her different dishes that she would make. And we had, in the small farm town that I grew up in, amazing cooks. And we had the benefit of having such great fresh vegetables, fruits, having fresh fish, because we have so many lakes and the ocean is not too far from us. So Betty, because of her generosity, she would make jars of her takuan or fukujinsuke and then pass them out ume to her friends and family. We did have a one and only Tsukemono festival at our church, and Betty swept most of the the dishes. She won a lot of the different Tsukemonos during this contest, and so that's where, for me, she got the title, the Queen of Tsukemono, because, in our hometown, she's so famous anyway. But I think, as she mentions, in the doc, she talks about her mom teaching her at 90 years old how to make Tsukemono for the first time. And I remember stories of my mom and my bachan, talking about how it always was like, for us, dessert, because the Issei and Nisei, with little remnants of rice they would have left in their chawan, they put the genmai-cha tea in, and then add the fukujinsuke, the takuan, the ume. What I love is all these tsukemonos are such great health benefits for you too, Haruka. I mean, they go back to our samurai era and our samurai families that would use the ume for to flavor or to purify their water, or to a lot of the takuan is used for digestion or cancer prevention, high in vitamin C. So all the different takuans really have amazing health benefits. And for our Issei and Nisei, to me, it was almost like watching them eat dessert or dinner again. But I think when you analyze it even more, they wanted to just preserve and not waste the little remnants of rice they still had in their chawan. And so I was always kind of just amazed on the food legacy that we were growing up with. But at the same time, I know that the new generations are enjoying it too. We have 2 grandkids, and they like Tsukemono as well. So I hope they carry on the tradition as well. And I know in spirit, Betty's very proud of all her proteges like us that learn from her and appreciate it, and to be able to pass on that torch to others, and then they'll be able to pass it on is quite satisfying.
Sure. So speaking of passing on the knowledge, I think people who watch the video are already salivating, and they're asking if there's a written recipe somewhere for us to share with them on how they can make the tsukemono that Betty demonstrated. I'm assuming it's not a closely guarded family secret if she was showing it on video, but
Yeah,
do you have written instructions somewhere that people can look at?
we do have it. If what they can do, Haruka, is leave their email address with you or with Tadaima, and then I'll get back to them and make sure they can get a copy of how to the whole process step.
Okay. Sure. And then my understanding is like you have a whole series of these video segments, right? Showing how to make these different varieties. So how can people get access to that?
Well, originally what we did is we had 5 different DVDs with each Tsukemono, and then we combined it into just one DVD. And originally we would wrap it in a furoshiki and send it, but now it just comes down to basically one DVD, and it's got all 5 different recipes for the Takuan, ume, nara-zuke, hoshigaki kaki, and fukujinzuke. These top 5 were our family's top 5. I mean, there's so many other great tsukemonos that you can use with napa cabbage or, you name it. But these 5 in particular, and again, I think you're going to leave, or Royce is going to leave our email address. If anyone would be interested in the DVD, then it's available. And I think even Tadaima is going to post some of the Tsukemono, Takuan, and some of the others in the future on the website. So they could pull it from there too. One thing I like about having an instructional DVD is that I use it all the time as well, because you'll forget. Betty has these old-fashioned methods that still work. I mean, you have to bring the fukujinzuke almost up to a boil 4 times. So she'll take 4 different toothpicks, and for each time that you drain it, you put a toothpick out, so that way you don't lose count on how many times you drained it, because that'll easily happen where you forget. So all these little tidbit things really help. That some old-fashioned ways, but I think they're priceless even to this day to make it as delicious as she does.
Sure. And we actually have another question from the audience.
Sure.
Clement is asking regarding the types of containers that we use to pickle the tsukemono. Mm-hmm. Is it okay to use recycled containers, or do you recommend just using the mason jars?
Especially if I'm recycling it with relatives and close friends, a lot of times they'll save the jars and the lids and then give them back to me. And then I'll reboil it if they're not in too bad a shape. Otherwise, I like to, for first timers that are getting it from us, I mean, I'll get it at the market, and, and preference again. I mean, some people like to use the big quart jars like Betty does for her Takuan. I prefer the 1-piners. I like to put a lot more Japanese peppers in it. So all that you'll see as you make it, your preference. Some will want more of a sweetness. Maybe others are less sweet, so you don't put as much sugar. So yeah, all that, Clement. Jar wise, I'll use it for family and friends to recycle. But if they get too beat up, then I'll just get new ones at the market.
Mm-hmm. I see. And it looks like we do have an email address to share with you all if you want to get your hands on those DVDs with the additional Takuan recipes. And so go ahead and email nbrp@comcast.net if you'd like to order a DVD. All right. And then, so I also had a question regarding the seasonal nature of the Takuan and the Tsukemono. So were there particular times of year where you would anticipate making like large batches of specific types of Tsukemono? And how much are we talking about in terms of volume?
Well, I know our inner circle about how many I have to make. And much like Betty's recipe that you saw today, for a batch of daikon or takuan that she made today, you'll need about 8 or 9 good-sized daikon radishes. Some will be thicker, rounder. Some will be thinner. But in general, if you use about 8 or 9 per bunch per recipe, you'll probably be in good shape. What you don't want to do is run out of the brine at the very end, because then you'll have to make a whole nother batch. So I always like to add a little extra. But going back to your question, Haruka, I would say that depending on what's in season, as I mentioned, right now is peak time to get Japanese eggplant and Armenian cucumber, guta. Because once they go away, then that's the end of fukujinzuke, because those two ingredients are definitely needed. Daikon, I could pretty much make year round because it's available year round. Renkon, ginger, napa cabbage, it's all depending on the seasons, but I like to make enough where not only do I take care of our family and friends and our inner circle, but to have some extra so that we can restock our refrigerator. And one thing nice about the Tsukemonos, other than the Takuan, probably that one has the less shelf life. You maybe 2 to 6 months in the refrigerator once you open it. But the other Tsukemonos, like the Fukujinzuke, you could have it in your refrigerator 5 or 6 years. Nara-zuke, same thing. But again, most of the time, if you're a Tsukemono lover, they're not going to last more than a year because you'll have eaten everything up. But if you had to just leave it in the refrigerator, it probably will last you years, other than the Napa and the Takuan Daikon. They are pretty, their shelf life isn't as long.
So speaking of shelf life, then, what is like the oldest tsukemono that you've ever eaten? Do you know how long it had been sitting on the shelf for before you opened it up?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of nara-zuke, udi, or what we call when we grow it, it's a katsura melon. And it looks like a half of a cucumber, half melon. And you cut it in half, you scrape out the seeds, and you put salt in. And then you take the kasu, which is the end product of sake. When they finally boil down sake to its end product, it becomes this mush, like a mud. But that mud is the kasu that we use to make our nara-zuke. And you take that kasu and you layer it in a bucket all the way to the top. And then for about a month to 6 months, you have to, every month you're stirring it for the next 6 months. And it's just like brown mud. And I've had nara-zuke where it's actually made me red, because we as Asians sometimes, we have this alcohol situation where we get red. I do. I get my eyes get red if I have beer, or and not very much. But nara-zuke, because of all that sake that it gets placed in for such a long time, it can actually have so much alcohol content in it that'll get you red too. And so I've had nara-zuke that probably 10 years old and delicious. Nara-zuke was used, the emperor was so impressed with it. It was kind of coined the emperor's pickle, or the emperor's favorite for monos. And it is kind of labor intense. It takes a lot longer to cure than most of the others. But if you ever haven't had nara-zuke in the kasu, Haruka, I thoroughly encourage it. I think you enjoy it.
Sure. And if you make some, let me know. I'll definitely hit you up for some. We do have another question from the audience, and they're asking about a specific ingredient in the recipe, the turmeric. They're asking, what purpose does the turmeric serve in the recipe?
The turmeric it adds a little bit of the color, and it also some of the flavoring. But that's a great question that they just mentioned, because that's something I wanted to cover. With the turmeric, you want to use the I just drew a blank. It's the very generic turmeric that you can get in any market. I tried 2 different turmerics from 2 different companies that were organic, and it just didn't turn out the same. So I would highly recommend the turmeric for the that is the basic Clover Fields or Chesterfield's turmeric. It's an American brand that you can get in any spice counter in any market, rather than go with the organic. Just something happened when I went with the organic turmeric, and you definitely need to use the turmeric. The yellow food coloring, that's an option that you don't have to use, but the turmeric definitely, it's a Middle Eastern spice that I think is critical for the Takuan.
Let's see. So someone was also asking, I think you intrigued people with talking about nara-zuke, but they're asking where you can get some kasu to make it.
Kasu you can get at any Japanese Asian market. You just go to the refrigerated section, and it usually comes in a bag about size of a small basketball, and it's just the kasu, or for kasuzuke, or for a lot of people like to put it on salmon on both sides, the kasu, and just broil it. We like to take a side of salmon, put a real thin layer of mayo, and any kind of topping that that you would like to put on top, like a nori or whatever you want to put on top. And for about 24 minutes, it's such a delicious, topping and way to cook salmon. And the kasu is another one. And we like to flavor the kasu a little sweetness, honey or sugar into the kasu if you're going to use it immediately. But with beri and the nara-zuke, then you're not having to put that as much sugar in as if you're going to use it on the salmon.
Sure. So I was wondering also, since you talked about knowing Betty's tsukemono and preparing large batches of it to give out to friends and family, are there particular occasions where you plan to give out the tsukemono that you've made? Are there do you do it like every year, like during Obon or Bazaar time, or like during the holidays as a gift?
Yeah, usually when everything is in season, our relatives and friends know that, well, this is July. I bet you the gutta and the Japanese eggplant's out. So hopefully we'll be getting our jar from from our family. And so it's a seasonal thing. What I like to do with the, like for instance, the Takuan, you have to, once it's in the jar, Betty likes to wait another couple weeks to let it cure. Fukujinzuke, you might have to let it, cure for a month. Each Fukujinzuke, I think, cures a little slower or longer. So I like to wait to make sure the curing process is done with each jar, and then present it as omiyage or a gift, or for those that crave it. And I enjoy, that's my gift, is to see others enjoy so much of a tsukemono that has so much of a legacy in our family's history. And I always think of the joke that how many Japanese Americans does it take to change a light bulb? 10, right? 1 to change the light bulb, and 9 to cook the food. And I think that so much encapsulates the Nikkei spirit. We all love to cook. We all love good cooking. We all love our culture, our heritage, our customs as a Japanese American Japanese, which I consider myself. And so to be able to have these amazing, tsukemonos that go back to our samurai era, and to today's day, to see our gosei and future generations enjoy it, and the health benefits to it as well. But the most important, I think we can just hopefully keep this legacy going, and so these recipes and these wonderful dishes our ancestors loved will continue on for future generations.
Definitely. So I know that Tsukemono has a very sharp, distinctive flavors, depending on the varieties. But I was wondering if there are any particular combinations or pairings that you recommend for certain types of Tsukemono, what sort of other dishes? Because I know just about everything goes with rice, right? But oftentimes people are eating it as part of a larger meal with other entrees or courses.
Right, right. Well, with the fukujinzuke, I like to have everyone, realize that it's because it's such a uh, used, like you said, with o-chazuke and genmai-cha tea. But in Japan, I found out that a lot of people use the fukujinzuke with curry. They'll make their curry rice dishes, and then they'll put the fukujinzuke on the side. And that was something that was kind of new for us. With the ume, this is a wonderful dish to try, is to take a sweet corn and steam it or boil it. And instead of putting butter on it, take your ume plum and smash it all around the corn cob. And when you take that bite, it's going to explode with the sweetness of the corn kernels and the saltiness and a little bitterness of the ume plum and the shiso flavor. To me, that's such an amazing flavor, you know. Uh, some will say, "Ooh, ume and sweet corn. That doesn't sound too good." But if you try it, I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I actually hadn't heard of that before, so I will definitely have to give it a try sometime.
Oh yeah. And with the other tsukemonos, I mean, we all uh, have our different favorites and variations, but in particular, those two kind of stood out in my mind because I didn't realize that fukujinzuke was used as with curries, and then the ume, that's kind of a Nakagawa family thing, that we do. But we like to share it because others, end up liking it as well.
Hmm. And I did have one last question on sort of the the tradition being passed down and if it was disrupted at all during the camps, or were people able to make tsukemono and make their takuan while they were incarcerated?
I think the stories I heard, Haruka, was, there was so many vegetable and truck farming going on. All our family went to Jerome, Arkansas, and Rover, and so I never thought of how the people that would lived on the outside of the camp would feel. But I remember meeting this in '83. I did a pilgrimage. My grandmother passed away and died in Jerome, Arkansas camp, and she had the restaurant, and we did a dedication. I remember it was an old farmer in overalls. He broke into our circle, and so afterwards, I was so curious. I had to catch up with him because we had, the media from dignitaries from all around Denson County, McGee County, and I ran up to this old farmer and I asked him. I was appreciative he joined our circle, our prayer circle, and mentioned that our grandmother passed away in this camp, and what organization or group did he represent? And he says, well, son, he goes, I used to live across the street from this camp, and we would throw rocks at all those truck farming trucks that would go get vegetables that they were growing. And he goes, we didn't have running water and we didn't have electricity. And we were so jealous of the internees in that Jerome camp. And, but he goes, I'm a Christian, and I'm 80 years old. I believe in God. So that's why I joined your circle today. And for me, that was pretty moving to see an 80-year-old man getting redemption because he used to throw rocks at these vegetable trucks going by. And it gave me a deeper understanding of and a realization. I never thought about, we always think about our family and our internees and friends that had to suffer and had so much sacrifice that they went through. But I never thought about the neighbors of the camps that didn't have running water or electricity and were jealous because, there were vegetable farm trucks going in and out. So yeah, the internees definitely did carried on the Tsukemono tradition because they grew their vegetables. They could grow daikon, they could grow, all the Japanese eggplants and the vegetables. So thank goodness, they carried on the tradition and were able to give a little bit of semblance of normalcy and such abnormal and um, such trying times for our community.
Great. Well, I think we're almost out of time for the hour here, but I want to thank you so much for sharing not just the film that you made, but also the insight as to how much love and care and the power of food to bring us together through the tsukemono that your family has made. So thank you very much, Kerry.
Thank you, Haruka, and Hanako, Kamiko, Mia, Royce, Aaron, everybody at Tadaima. Thanks for the opportunity to share, and gocho-sama, itadakimasu. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy these recipes. And I think we're going to put a couple of the other ones posted on the Tadaima site. So if others want to try some of the other recipes, they can as well.
Great, thank you. And then just a quick reminder before we go away is that we do have a second program today coming up at 5 p.m. Pacific time. It'll be a presentation put on by Friends of Minidoka, and that'll also include a senior panel with some of the elders in the community, as well as an additional presentation. Please tune back in and continue joining us for this ongoing series of virtual programs. It's 9 weeks, so we have a lot of stuff coming at you. There's something for everyone. So again, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye, everyone.
See ya.